It's 4th of October 23. It's Wednesday, and I'm talking about the Tory conference which is happening this week. And this is for YouTube. And yeah, I thought Rishi's speech was really good, and him and Suella were the 2 stars. I thought Suella's speech was a Emperor's New Clothes speech. She said done the same in Washington last year, and so that was good. So that was really important, I think. And on Rishi, I've said before, like, I think he could be a great Prime Minister, you know, one of our greatest, if not the greatest. Well, I don't know about that. Yeah, possibly. I think he's probably will win the election next year. I just don't think people like here, you know what I mean? I think it's a bit like Neil Kinnock, really. Yeah. So yeah, Rishi's speech was really good, and his wife done a speech just before him, and that was really touching as well. It was really, you know, she was spot on, really. How they met in America at uni or something 20 years ago. Yeah, so yeah, what was Rishi talking about? Since this is for YouTube, you know, I'll not talk about a lot of things, but he cancelled the train from Birmingham to Manchester, the what did they call it again? The H2 or something? Hydro speed, I don't know, HS2, is that it? Yeah, cancelled that bit from Birmingham to Manchester. The trains will still go up to Manchester, so I don't know if that means they'll always be half as fast as what they are now. Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't really know. I can't think me. I mean, Boris was saying in his article in the Daily Mail at the weekend, it'd be foolish to cancel it because we can't seem to do any big infrastructure things, which I agree with totally, you know. I wonder if we'd be able to build the motorways now, or if you know, campaigners would be against it, and there'd be all sorts of NIMBY stuff. Because if you look at Heathrow, they wanted a third runway in 1983 or something, and they never got to build it, and it got cancelled about 30 years later. You know, John McDonnell, I think, was a big supporter of cancelling it. Yeah, I don't know why. He's a local MP. Maybe that's something to do with it. But and Boris as well, funnily enough, because he was out of the country when they had the vote. Even though Boris wanted a new airport, and I agree with him that he wanted it somewhere down the Thames estuary. I agree, you know. I mean, countries have got to do these big things. We used to do them, but now we seem to have stopped in the first industrial revolution, you know. We can't seem to build anything big now. Private companies can, but we can't. And if we do, they go way over budget. But Boris was saying that Isambard Kingdom Brunel, one of his big projects was 4 times over budget. And Boris was saying that in China they have lectures at unis about how democracies can't do big infrastructure things because they end up getting cancelled. And he's right, really, because and that China's built 25,000 miles of high-speed train. Because when you think it, Japan had these since the 1960s or something. But anyway, in China they've built 5,000 kilometres or something over the last 10 years or whatever, or 15. Well, we've been trying to get this train track built from London to Manchester. Originally it was meant to go to Leeds as well, but that was cancelled 2 years ago. So under Boris, I presume. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how Britain can't do this thing, because we've got this thing up in Scotland as well. We had the tram thing in Edinburgh, you know. I mean, we had a tram thing in the 19th century, but then in the early 21st century they just couldn't do it without continually going over budget. And I don't know how many times they went over budget. It just doesn't make sense. How do they always judge these things wrong? And now up in Scotland as well, we've got these 2 ferries that the Scottish Government gave to I think it was a sort of nationalised company under a respected rich guy in the oil business in Scotland, and now they're both blaming each other for because it's not been built yet, and it was meant to be like sort of, I don't know, 50 million or something it would cost, and it's expected now to be sort of 200 million or even more. And the ironic thing is that oil tycoon guy is blaming the government are blaming him. It's hard to understand who. I'm guessing the government are probably in the right, I don't know, but I mean, how does that happen, you know? And he's even said that they should scrap them and do them again, but then they get a new guy in, and I saw him on TV, and he said, he was asked, do you think it'll go over budget, or do you think it'll go over budget and be on time or whatever? And he said, it'll be on time and on budget. And now last week he's saying it won't be on time and it'll be way over budget again. And originally it was meant to have about a capacity of 1,000 people, now it's down to 850. And all the other bidders said that they couldn't do 1,000. They were around about 850 or whatever, you know. So I just don't know how these things get out of control. And now Rishi said he's sacking the team that have been managing the high-speed railway, or the London part anyway, because I think it was meant to cost about 30 billion, and now they're 90 or 100 billion or something, but he's cancelling at around about 60 billion or something, I don't know, but yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And as I say, like, China's probably laughing because they don't need to worry about voters or anything, or NIMBYs or whatever. Because even if you think of Glasgow, that we used to have those protests about the M77 goes to air. It takes all that traffic out of Pollock Shields and that. I wonder what the people in the flats think now of that thing. Maybe their parents used to have sit-down protests. Wonder what they think now that all that traffic's not going through their streets, you know. So, yeah, for me anyway, I think Rishi's totally competent, you know. I mean, most of the prime ministers I've got respect for that I can think of, thinking back to Thatcher, maybe even Wilson, Callan, Thatcher, Major, I had respect for him. Blair, I still listen to Tony Blair, you know, I still listen to what he has to say. I may not agree, a lot of things I do, but yeah, he just seems a sensible person. Cameron even, you know, I had time for him. But then Theresa May was sort of the worst I could think of in my lifetime. Oh, she was just totally terrible. And then we had Boris, and I had support for Boris, but really it was all smoke and mirrors. Really, he was an idiot. Really, I mean, if you look at two things, for a start, I don't bother about him being a green fanatic. I mean, he's a green fanatic. In 2014, he said, "Wind can't give us enough power to take the skim off our rice pudding." So that was not even 10 years ago. And then when he became Prime Minister, he was a green fanatic, you know, which I don't mind really, as long as it's possible, you know, because I listen to Dale Vince for advice on this, you know, not all of his stuff, but I think most people could probably live on solar and battery already. Certainly in the nice months, but even in the bad months, maybe 80% or 70%, I don't know. I don't know why they don't. I'm not a fan of heat pumps, but so Boris done that, and all these right wingers hate greenness, and yet they all support Boris. I mean, why do you support him? He's ultra green, you know. So I can't figure it out. It doesn't bother me, but you know, he brought in that ULEZ thing as well. I was having it planned it all. But then on another issue, Boris, you know, well, he had Brexit and he done that. But on another issue, we've had the most we've ever had over the last 2 years of his premiership. So, and he lowered the bar and that. So, on that, he's been the worst Prime Minister ever, probably. Depends how you look at it. If you think the way the country's going is a good thing, or if you don't, if you're a bit sceptical or worried or anxious. If you are anxious, you should vote Tory or further on that spectrum. You know, you must need to abandon Labour, Greens, SNP, and that. Because on that subject, for me, the people that speak for me really are Rafi Heidelmann, Suella Braverman and Maya Tusse, really. Anyway, it's not a subject you can speak on YouTube, you know, so I don't really speak on it. Yeah, but I think everything he says seems competent to me, so I have great respect for him. I think he could win the next election. I don't think there's a lot of love for Keir. I think he's like a Neil Kinnock character when it comes to the crunch, especially when you think the Northern Wall voted Brexit, you know. Why they're saying the polls that they're voting Labour now, I don't know, because nothing's changed really. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Tory thing. I can't think of anything else that they think it's Labour's conference next week. I think it's ridiculous that they're not at Parliament during these conferences, you know. This is Parliament. They came back for 1 week in September and now they're off for another 3 weeks. You know, they've got more holidays than uni students, year 3 uni students in Scotland, you know. So that's all I've got to say about that, I think. Yeah, I mean, maybe I should elaborate slightly, you know. It's just because there's a new experiment going on that's never been tried before in humanity, and I think it's going to be a disaster for everyone, you know. I think it's going to be a disaster for the West, and possibly they could become the worst places ever to exist. And also, I mean, possibly the whole world has failed states, really, you know. You know, it's not any. If I thought it was going to work, I would say so, you know, but I don't think it's looking that way. So it's going to be bad for everyone, I think. And also, it's not an issue in it seems it's not an issue in most continents. It's not going to happen. This experiment, you know, so, you know,